Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sarah Samuels, the Programs and Communications Manager here at ABNY. We're so glad to see you here, and we encourage you to share the ABNY message via social media at ABetterNY, as always. Welcome to the kickoff event in our ABNY University Bootcamp on how to run a successful political campaign. Today's session will cover how to create a campaign plan with Professor Jaime Estades. We're so glad that you can join us today, and we hope that you will also join us for the future sessions in this series, How to Influence and Engage Voters with Yvette Buckner and Amelia Adams on 1025, and How to Organize to Affect Change in the Electoral Process with Amit Baga, former Deputy Director of New York City Census 2020, date TBD. So without further ado, I'll introduce our wonderful speaker for today, Professor Jaime Estades. So Professor Estades is an Adjunct Professor at the Columbia School of Social Work and Rutgers University Graduate School of Social Work. He's also taught at Fordham University's Graduate School of Social Services and served as a former Columbia University Revson Fellow. He's a frequent commentator on political and policy issues and has authored articles for numerous outlets. He's also served as the executive producer of The November Surprise, a documentary film based on the 2016 presidential election that was shown at the 2018 Sundance Film Festival. Professor Estades has committed his life to advocacy, education, health, and leadership training. In 1996, he founded the Latino Leadership Institute Inc., a nonprofit which trains individuals on the fundamentals of campaign management and public policy. It also hosts civic engagement projects in the Northeast and Florida. The Latino Leadership Institute was selected by the White House as one of the bright spots of excellence in education in the Hispanic community in the United States in 2015. Professor Estades also uses his expertise to bolster the work of key nonprofits and spearheaded the nonpartisan registration of over 100,000 new voters across multiple states. He's earned his JD from CUNY School of Law and Master's in Social Work at the CUNY Hunter College Graduate School of Social Work. So without further ado, I'm going to kick the screen over to Professor Estades to present the presentation. Please submit any questions for him throughout the presentation via the Q&A function, and we'll make sure to address them at the end. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to be in such an important organization as ABNY. And, you know, I wish when I created the Latino Leadership Institute, what I was trying to envision, and I couldn't do it because I was a little bit busy, was to create something like what you guys have. I think that this is an extremely important institution that basically provides a little bit more than traditional education provides. So I congratulate you, and, you know, great idea, and I'm glad that you guys are doing this. So the Latino Leadership Institute, basically what we do is that we train people on the electoral process. I have to warn you that during the PowerPoint, many of the areas that we're going to be touching are areas that usually take at least 2.5 hours in order to be taught or more. And that's what it takes us. For example, we're going to be talking briefly about petitions. We're going to be talking about fundraising, about how to create a message. All these things take a long time, each one of those topics, in order to be presented properly. So I'm just going to basically go through them very quickly because we don't have enough time. And then I will appreciate, and I think that you will appreciate it better once we go into the Q&A. So I just want to make sure that you can see my PowerPoint. Please let me know.
Yep, it's great.
People can see it?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, good. Oh, okay. 1 second. Okay, so this is basically an overview of what we're going to be talking today. We're going to go through what is it that makes you a good representative and why you're running. What do you bring that is different? Who's supporting you? What is your record in your community? In terms of, I'm sorry, I have to go back. in terms of fundraising, how much you need in order to run competitively. Incumbent, are you an incumbent, not an incumbent? Prime voter list, volunteers, message, field operations. Who do you hire first? Fundraising, campaign finance board, and petitions. So this is a lot for the time that we have, but let's give it a try. So the first question that you should ask if you're planning to run for office is always why you should be running, why you should be an elected official, and why now. If you are someone, if you are an adult and you are in the mid-30s or mid-40s or mid-50s, why now? Because you had a long time before to make that decision. Why is it that you're making that decision now? Now, in terms of the moment, why didn't you do it before? Can you wait? Are you completely sure that this is what you want to do? And why you? Because that's the question that the voters are going to be asking when they go to vote. Why they should vote for you? Why you? What is it that you bring to the table that the current elected official, or if there is a special election or the position has been term limited, then why you? Because there are going to be other people who are going to be running for this position. And what is it that make you special or different? That's a question that takes time to answer. Sometimes people that decide to run for office deal with that question for a couple of years until they feel that they are ready. Some people, they just decided in one day, I'm going to do this, doesn't matter what. But are they prepared for what is coming? And one of the things that we're going to be talking today is about family. If you have a family, if you're married, you have children, if you're not, all these are questions that are extremely important, and how the people around you can handle being in a campaign, which is not easy. So you may think that you, like they say in my hood, you may feel that you are the last Coca-Cola in the desert, but your family may not be ready to go through that journey with you. It's tough. So that's something that I always tell our students to always take in consideration. The good thing that they do is that they come and they take the courses. And after they take the courses, and we do it for free, we don't make any money of this. We are doing this for the empowerment of the community, especially communities of color and poor communities. They make the decision after they take the course and they understand what it entails to run for office. So like I said, political elections, who's supporting you? After you answer the first question, which is very personal, then you have to answer the question for others who are around you. Family, friends. So you have a conversation with your family, with your friends too, because each one of them is going to have a role in your campaign. Even not having a role, especially with the family, is a role. Not having a role is a role, especially when it comes to your family, because you cannot separate from your family as much as you want during this process. It's basically something that it doesn't fit in the equation of running for office. The family is always there, and they're going to suffer and they're going to enjoy it too. Friends, are the people telling you to run for office friends that you trust their judgment? Because, you know, we have friends that we trust their judgment, and we have friends that they're friends, but not always we trust their judgment. What have you done for the community lately? Are you known in the community? And it's not the community only, it's the district that you are going to be running for office. So that's one of the first things that you are going to do some research. Do you want to run for the assembly, for the state senate? Do you want to run for city council? Do you want to run for mayor, for borough president? And what have you done that basically has helped that district, those districts, or the people in the community that encompass most of the district? Because people say, well, I'm from East Harlem. Well, there are a couple of districts in East Harlem that basically touch East Harlem. So you need to know the district in which you live is where you live. That's where you're going to be running. If you run for mayor, well, as long as you live in New York City in one of the 5 boroughs, you're okay. If you run for Congress, that's a bigger district that can go through different neighborhoods. But the lines, you need to know the lines. You need to know if you live there and which one is the best one for you to run. There is a vacancy. There is no vacancy. Is the elected official someone who has been there for a long time, who counts with a lot of support? What is your record as an activist and leader in the community? Why people should vote for you and who's supporting you? Usually what you do with this is that you create a list of friends and people that you have worked before, and you see how many people you think that can support you. Now, if you have, I always tell this to people, you know, I don't run for office because my mother wouldn't support me. It's a joke, bad joke. But that is true. If you have people in your family, like father, mother, wife, children, brothers, sisters, if one of them don't support you, take that in consideration and give it a lot of weight. Because the last thing that voters wants to know is that there are members of your family that can deal with you. That is not good. So you need to weigh that with the other pros that you have to run for office. And you better be someone well-known in the community and respected, besides what any family member or close friends can say about you. This sounds trivial, but that's how elections are. Next, volunteers. Let's say that you are okay with your family, with friends, etc. You are going to need volunteers to work in the campaign. You will need unions. Unions are extremely important in New York City. New York City is a union town. I know that ABA has one of the members is the president of the AFL-CIO in New York, which is good to know. Unions are very important. They donate. Not only they donate monies to campaigns that they feel basically is going to support the working people in New York, but also they have a great number of volunteers that they can bring, especially on election day, which is important. But also they can trickle down throughout the process of your campaign. Community. That means friends, people that know you, and not always they have the time. And you need to, we're going to go through this, but you're going to be doing activities, electoral campaigning that, you know, it's going to be almost every week, every weekend, even during the week, and you need to have volunteers with you. Not everybody has the time to do that for a couple of months in a campaign. So the concept of volunteers is just an old concept, but volunteers get paid now. And that includes, even if you don't have the money, feed them, have a place where they can go, where they can relax, sit down, use the bathroom, eat, have food, have water, have refreshments. All that requires money. And it's also good to give them a stipend if you can. On election day, this is the reality out there. I usually don't recommend it much, but most campaigns are using homeless organizations where they send a group of homeless. They work during the day in the campaign. They may not care about you or anything, but they are there. And if you can give them a stipend and you can give them food, unfortunately, that's the reality. And more and more and more, you see this more and more in campaigns in New York City. I have seen elections in which they have around 50 or 60 people on election day who have no link whatsoever to the campaign or to the elected official, but it's people who are in need. And it's not good to take advantage of them, you know? So when they come, you need to treat them with respect. People see you treating them with respect, people are going to respect you, and you are going to give them something that they need at least for that day. I have seen campaigns that after they promise those volunteers monies, they don't pay them. And it's very sad. And once people hear about it, that's your last campaign. So people don't like that in general. But unions are committed if you are committed to the unions. And family and close friends, they're always there for you. So, but you also have to treat them with respect. And believe me, there are going to be times during the campaign in which you are going to be so anxious, so nervous, that you may lose your cool, even with people who are helping you for free. So you need to keep your cool. You need to make sure that your staff is also staff that can answer all the demands of the campaign without getting angry or getting upset. Every volunteer counts. Now, so you decided to run, the district in which you're going to be running. You know that you need volunteers. You already spoke to your family gave you the green light. So then you need a couple of things. First is the third one in this PowerPoint, which is research. You need to know where you're running. How many votes do you need? If you're running against an incumbent, you need to make a research on that incumbent in terms of the electoral results of the previous campaigns in which that incumbent ran. I'm not talking about their personal life or where you can get them. That's another story. The first research is about numbers. Is how many votes this person got in the last campaign and how many votes the second person got in the last campaign and how many votes the third person got in the last campaign and where they got those votes in the district, in what buildings, in what areas of that district they got the vote. So you have to make a research. That information is available. The Board of Election give you all that information. There is something that you need to know that is very important, which is an ED. In campaigning, we call ED electoral districts. Electoral districts are usually a unit of 1,500 people that live in a specific area and they compose the ED. It can be ED1, ED2, ED3, but there is a concentration of people that compose that electoral district. And then what you do, this is going to take longer, but at least to give you an idea, what you do is you make the analysis of all the EDs, all the electoral districts in that council district, assembly district, senate district, congressional district. of the last elections, how many people came out to vote in those electoral districts. That information is provided through data that the Board of Elections provide. For whom they voted. They don't tell you who voted for whom. It tells you, obviously, the results of the last campaign. And the most important thing in this is where you have the major turnouts, where people didn't come out to vote in greater numbers. And then you create your strategies and your tactics based on those numbers. But that is extremely important to understand what ED is. It's an electoral district. And the best way to get that is through the prime voter list. Now, the Board of Elections doesn't give you the prime voter list. This is something that you have to buy from vendors that have a list that give you a portrait of the electorate. It gives you a picture of who is voting consistently, election after election, in that district where they have been voted. People who have been voting consistently for the last 4 or 5 years, that's a voter that you want to reach out. We're going to be talking about outreach soon, because they are most likely to vote again. And then you're going to find areas in which the turnout is low, and you may not have that many people that vote consistently. Well, you need to concentrate where the majority of the people have been voting. Unfortunately, that's the aspect that you use when you run for office. As an activist, is the opposite. If you want to create more political empowerment, yes, you bother with those that come regularly, but you also need to concentrate on those that don't come out to vote. Those are the ones that, as an activist, you want to go to them and make sure that they come out to vote, because you don't care about the result of the election so much than empowering through the vote that community by making sure that they turn out to vote regularly. And that means that in the next election, if there are more EDs participating that didn't participate before, then the candidates have to go there and listen to them and basically do, hopefully, what those people are asking them to do. So you have the activists, and then you have the campaigns. The campaigns are going to focus more on the prime voter list of those that turn out to vote regularly, because that's the easy one, and those are the ones that you want. You don't want to spend your money in places where the turnout is low. You want to concentrate your money and your campaign in the largest turnouts. Activists, we want everybody to vote, and our concern is who's not voting, so it's totally the opposite. So this is for activists and also for people who are not running for office. And believe me, that's how campaigns are run in the United States. And that's how gerrymandering is created. We can talk about that later in another presentation. If you invite me, I do it. We can talk about other constitutional issues that are affecting voting. I always tell my students at Columbia and what I teach and NYU, etc., the history of voting in the United States is not the history of voting. If there is a history of voting, it's a very simple history. You come in, you vote. That's the history of voting. But there are volumes on voting in the United States. But it's the history of voter suppression in the United States. No one suppressed the vote better in so-called democracies in the world than the United States. Historically, from the beginning. The first thing that they did was to suppress the vote in the Constitution of the United States by calling slaves 3/5 of a man in order to create congressional districts. That's another conversation, believe me. Sometimes I agitate myself. So yes, there is a lot of voter suppression in this country. So who votes frequently and where? Now, this is important because usually the places of voting are usually schools, mostly schools, community centers, elderly, centers for the elderly, etc. Nursing homes, they have machines where they can vote. So you want to make sure that you concentrate your campaigns in those places. Moving on, going to volunteers. Okay, who do you hire first? You made your decision. Everybody told you not to run and you decided to run. So, okay, so now you have to deal with this. This is about money. Not only there is voter suppression in this country that you can do without voting, without money, you just create laws and that's it. But if you don't have money, unfortunately, you are going to have less opportunities of winning. Citizens United, the decision of the Supreme Court, basically declared that corporations are people, meaning that now corporations can put money in any campaign as much as they want, like an individual, because they have a First Amendment right of freedom of expression that it was only for human beings. It was never created for corporations, but in the wisdom of the current conservative Supreme Court of the United States, a decision by Justice Roberts, corporations are people. That means that now they have a First Amendment right like any human being or individual. That means that money speaks, has power. And they have, because they can put billions of dollars in a campaign through a political action committee, they have a bigger bullhorn than us. And that's how, especially national elections, are conducted now. But let's talk about local campaigns, which is, I think, what you're for those who are planning to start in lower office. Fundraising is extremely important. So the first person that you hire is a finance person that is going to help you with the fundraising and making sure that the books are in order. If you run in New York City, the campaign finance board is going to be checking everything that you do. They're also giving you matching monies, especially if you run for the city council, but you have to reach certain amount of voters and a certain amount of money for them to match your money, which is very good idea. It's trying to equalize the field in elections. Thank God for the campaign finance board. There's a lot of paperwork that you have to do, but they exist because of fairness. We can go on and on. I'm going to talk about fundraising separately soon. Then, in order to run for office, you also need to get petitions. There is a certain number for city council, assembly, senate. That means signatures of people that support you in running for office, not that they're supporting you to win, but they think that it's okay to have a lot of people running and they give you the signature. So you collect signatures for each one of the different offices. There is a number of signatures. For example, it's around 1,500 for city council. Well, don't go for 1,500. If you go for 1,500 and that's what you deliver, they're going to throw you out, because there is a legal process that you have to go with those signatures. Those signatures have to be valid. That means that the address has to be correct. That means that punctuation has to be correct. That means that the name has to be correct. That means that the borough where you're running, the name, you don't put Brooklyn, you put Kings County. So there are all these rules that if one of those things are not there, you lose not only the signature, but the page where all those signatures are being collected even if the other signatures are correct, you lose the whole page. So what you do, to make this story short, is that you triple the amount of signatures. So if they ask you for 1,500, try 4,500 or 5,000. Let the other candidate go through the 5,000 signatures to debunk you, to take you out. That's a lot of work and that's a lot of time. Make it difficult for the other side to say that your signatures are not good. Make it difficult for them to challenge those signatures in court. So the best way is to hire a lawyer that basically is going, that understand electoral law in that state, and they can go over and tell you what is right, the signatures that are right or wrong. You can eliminate those and then you submit them later. Never submit your signatures unless you have a lawyer. Now, that's why money is important to raise, because lawyers are going to charge you, and they charge a lot, because that's a lot of work, by the way. And you're going to need a lawyer also for the final days of the campaign. If there is a recounting, or you're going to challenge the other candidate, someone who won, or there are irregularities, you always want to have a lawyer. You can make arrangements with those lawyers for what specifically you need them. But right now, there are two people that you need to hire that are very important, and they cost money. Now let's talk a little bit about fundraising. And please, Sarah, Laura, tell me when I'm running out of time, because I can keep going, and I'm trying to make it as short as possible. But I haven't checked my chat, but you can interrupt me anytime. Okay.
We'll keep an eye on you. Thank you.
Yes, you sound like my daughters. Always trying to keep an eye on me. Let me see what I did here wrong. 1 second. Okay, fundraising. There is not much difference between asking people for money and asking people for their vote. I don't know which one is most difficult, you know? And the two more difficult things in society is asking for money and asking for their vote. And everything, all those two come together in an election. So it's not easy. So let's go straight to fundraising. I'm trying to get the right slide, just give me a second. Okay, campaigns must spend money. There is no way that you can run and win unless you spend money. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. That's what an election in a capitalist country comes about. In other places, in other countries, believe me, it's a lot easier. The governments make sure that the candidates are equalized in terms of the amount of money. And here, you know, now you have a corporation supporting you. You're going to have a lot of money because they can put as much money as they want. They don't put the money in your campaign, by the way. They have to create a political action committee. And then through that political action committee, they can put billions of dollars if they want to support you. That means that they can create advertisement, they can have, they can pay people to work on behalf of your campaign, and they can also destroy other campaigns through media. They can pay for media destroying or supporting you. So, you know, they have so much power now since the Citizens United decision more than 10 years ago. Now, but this is the problem when you have to raise money for your own campaigns. I don't like calling strangers, especially for money. I'm not good doing that. There is a solution for that. If you don't like raising money, if you don't like calling people to give you money for your campaign, there is one solution. Get over it. That's the only solution. Get over it. You have to do it. You will find all the excuses in the world. You have to get over it and you have to do it. Money is the fuel of your campaign. Without it, there is no campaign. Hated to say it because I'm an organizer, and I think that in the past, a long time ago, we used to do, as organizers, we used to get the body was volunteer work, etc. But little by little, the elections became more and more difficult. So you can, it's good to have good organizers in your campaign. They're going to bring you votes, but are they going to be able to bring you enough? And that's a decision that's a question that you have to answer. Again, there is not much difference between asking people for money and asking people for their vote. You are always going to get a lot of questions before they give you the vote and before they ask you for money. Who give you money is the people, immediately is the same people who are going to give you their vote because they know you, they like you, and they do both. But you are going to be talking to people. The majority of the people don't know you personally. They may know you by reputation in the district, but not personally. So they are not going to give you money just for the sake of money. I'm them to give you money, especially if they don't know you. Are they going to give you the vote when they don't know you? They may know someone else who's running better. Now, these are the categories in fundraising that you can get money from. First, relational. That means your family. Always starts with your family. They may not have much money, but always start with your family. They are most likely to give you money. Second, ideological. Are you progressive? Are you a moderate? Are you conservative? There are people who will give you the money because they believe ideologically in your platform. But you have to sell your platform first. And for that, you need money. So sometimes what candidates do is that they put their own money at the beginning just to have some seed money, just to start the campaign, especially to hire the people that we mentioned before. But ideologically, if you're a conservative in a place like East Harlem and you're running for office, there are a bunch of conservative people here. And they never think that they can win, but they say, okay, at least there is one running, we can put money there. You may not get that much unless it's a corporation that is in the neighborhood. So ideologically can help. Aversion. And this is true. I have working campaigns. I don't do that now. What I do is that I basically teach. But I have run campaigns for mayor in East Harlem, in the Upper East Side for Dinkins, etc. I ran campaigns in more local campaigns like Assembly, etc., City, etc. The thing is that you won't be surprised if you are in those headquarters all day, the people that come through that door. You will see people, and this is nothing weird. This is common in campaigns. You will see people coming through that door that are willing to help you and give you money just because, and I hate to put it this way, but this is how it is, because they hate the other candidate. And they come with monies and they say anything that I can do just to get rid of that person. And you will find characters like that coming all the time. Now you have to make a decision. Do I take the money? It's fine. If it's ideological, I have another, one is ideology, another thing is aversion. But check who's giving you the money. You don't want to show up in the newspaper 2 weeks later that you got money from someone that is a big drug dealer or is someone that is in a corrupt adventure with other people. Be careful with the people that just come through the door giving you money unless you know who they are. You may be in need of money and you say, oh, I have to take it. I need this money. But sometimes it's the worst thing that you can do. And based on my experience, and you can talk to any campaign manager in the United States, Republicans, Democrats, independent, whatever, they will tell you that this is more common than you think. So people are going to come to you. Just check them. Access. There are people who don't care. There are people who are going to give you money and they're going to give money to the other candidate. And those are people usually with business and economical interests that they just want to have access to the elected official, to the new elected official, or to the old elected official. They just want to have access. They don't care you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're a socialist, you're a capital. They don't care about that. They just want to have access. And they can give money to both candidates. And you usually will find out later. But at least they gave you. This is also something that shouldn't be surprising. But always check the people that you don't know that come with a lot of money to give you. Remember, there are caps. You shouldn't go beyond those caps.
Professor Estades, I'm just going to interrupt with a quick 2-minute warning, 5-minute warning, because we want to address some of the audience questions if there's time.
Okay, good. So let me skip this. Fundraising, the best way is face-to-face. Talk to people face-to-face to raise monies. Personal phone calls, that's what they do in Congress all the time. 60 to 65% of the time of people in Congress, they spend their time not legislating, but raising monies. And they do it through phone calls every day. And then you wonder sometimes why they vote the way they vote. This infrastructure issue right now in Congress, when you have some elected officials, even Democrats, who are hesitant to do certain things, well, check the list of people that they are calling during the day for donations. You can use email. Email is basically for low donors. Obama did a lot of fundraising through email. He was lucky, but it was a presidential campaign. House parties are great for two reasons. First, people come, you meet them, you talk to them, or you go to their houses. If they can do a house party for you, you go there, you meet the people that they're bringing. You can raise monies, but at the same time, you're campaigning with a group of people. Don't leave immediately when you go to house parties, because people don't like that. And I have seen it. I have seen mayor candidates. I have even seen the mayor of the city of New York doing that when he was running for the first time for mayor. Show up, 5 minutes, say goodbye, and left. All those people show up to see you in that house. You're embarrassing everybody. So, when you have someone seasoned as the mayor making those mistakes, is something to know. And I was going to give you an exercise, but we're running out of time. So, and this is the exercise. Do it on your own. Using your memory, make a list. Don't use the iPhone. Make a list of 10 people that can donate a minimum of $150. 10 people that can give you $150 to your campaign by memory. You will have, when you do that, you will have around $3,000, $2,500, $3,000 already by thinking about that without using your iPhone, the list of people. So congratulations on your free 3,000. It's not as difficult as you think. It is difficult, but it's not as difficult as you think. So anyway, that's the exercise. And I'm at your mercy, Sarah and Madeline. Tell me what to do.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I speak personally when I say I learned so much, and I'm sure our audience has too. So I'm gonna jump in just to some submitted questions by the audience that people submitted when they signed up for this. So the first question, I think, is a great question. It's, how do modern campaigns differ from traditional campaigns?
Well, modern campaigns change with the Citizens United decision. And they have been changing gradually. For example, technology changed campaigns. You know, I remember, I'm not that old, but I remember when we depended on posters and stickers and put them outside. You know, now technology has changed all that. You know, we still do that. That is important, but now it's basically social media. Things are different, but Citizens United, by giving so much power to corporations, is very difficult to compete, especially at the national level. The Voting Rights Act was diminished also by the Supreme Court of the United States. So there is no protection. That's why there is so much voter suppression legislation right now that didn't exist before the Shelby decision of the Supreme Court that basically diminished the power of the Voting Rights Act. So now the campaigns are more technological, but still, this is the hope. There is no better campaigning, and this is true, has been proven to this day, than having physical presence and shaking someone's hand is unbeatable. Especially if they check yours and they don't check the other candidates. If they have to make a decision because they don't know, they're going to remember the one that they shook their hands, because there is a lot of people who are going to be undecided. So always show up on the street, but social media is extremely important now, and technology.
So sort of moving from that point, what would you say was one of the most successful recent campaigns and why?
Well, at the national level, because I'm going to talk nationally because that's what people see most. I think there is a problem, and I'm going to get into, especially at the national level. People are not elected by the majority of the vote, especially the President of the United States, because that's in the Constitution. Majority has nothing to do with the election. It's about electoral colleges. So you can have the majority of the vote like Hillary did with 5 million votes over Trump in the first election. That's completely meaningless for federal. So as a matter of fact, the concept of right to vote doesn't exist in the Constitution under the 14th Amendment that is mentioned, just to illustrate a point. So majority doesn't count. So what is important now is basically making sure that you raise monies. We're depending more and more on monies in order to pay for get out the vote. Mailings are extremely important. So I don't know if I answered your question. Maybe I lost it, but I think I'm in the ballpark. If not, bring me back to the context.
What was a very successful campaign? Maybe one that took you
the Biden campaign, because they combine majority and electoral colleges, like they must, and they won in districts that perhaps they should have lost. And that's the ground campaign that did that work in, for example, Georgia, for example, Arizona. Those are states that Republicans were expected to win. And there is another state, I think it's Colorado, Georgia, Arizona. If Trump had won those three, he would have been president today, because it has nothing to do with the majority of the vote. So there are things that have to be changed constitutionally in this country, but that deserves 3/4 of Congress and two-thirds of Congress and 3/4 of the state to change, to amend the Constitution, especially regarding voting, and make it more fair.
And just pivoting a little from the national scale to a more local scale.
Yes.
And you touched on this a little bit with your mention of the Campaign Finance Board, but wanted to know if you could share with the attendees on the call today what financial resources one can tap into to launch a campaign in New York City.
Well, first, you start with you, with yourself, with your family. That's important. Make sure that everybody in the family agrees with you on the amount of money. After that, this is my personal opinion, try not to involve your family too much, especially in the financial aspect. Some candidates have their spouse running the finances, and it's going to drive the campaign manager crazy. Because the campaign manager knows the campaigns, knows what to do. He knows what he or she needs in order to make that campaign successful. And the last thing he or she wants is to get in a dispute about money between you and your husband, you and your wife. Keep the family out of the money. Hire someone to do that. Let the campaign manager, you and your finance person do that. Don't bring your spouse in the finances of the campaign, please. I'm telling you, the headaches that you're going to go through, because families, are not campaigns, they're not parties. And they are going to be thinking about the well-being of the family. Well, we cannot give them, we need to save this. We don't want to get in trouble. What about the kids? And, all these other things that have nothing to do with, they have to do with the campaign, but it is additional conversations that are going to slow down the process. And the poor campaign manager is going to go nuts.
It's a family dinner on steroids. Thanks. Yeah. Great. And then what advice would you give young professionals, some of whom might be on this call, looking to get involved in political campaigns? So not just who want to run for office themselves, but maybe want to work on a campaign, want to be a staffer.
Just go to a campaign and knock on the door. They're going to take you. That's the first thing. Just go and get in, work in a campaign, whatever they give you. Tell them what you can do. What are your usually campaigns now like people with technological knowledge and social media knowledge. So which means that most kids, more young people are going to be hired immediately, and because that knowledge, especially there are a lot of campaign managers who are old-fashioned, but they understand what they need. And they just need someone who can take care of that business for them under their supervision. Just show up. Campaigns will take you. They need people. Just show up. Tell them what you want to do, how you can help. And if they don't pay you, it's fine. You're going to learn so much in that campaign as a volunteer. If you have plans to run for office one day or to become a campaign manager. That, by the way, at the national level, they get paid very, very, very well.
That's great. Yeah. Great. And then this is more of a personal question. I think we have time for one or two more, but I know that you have a background both with a master's in social work and a JD. And I was wondering how your background in social work has impacted your view of political campaigns.
Well, my BS in psychology, my master's is in social work. I have a law degree. I'm a lawyer. I don't practice. I'm just teaching now. But social work, I became a lawyer because as a community organizer, as an advocate, there were a lot of things that I was confronting that had to do with the law. And I always felt that I needed more, and that the social work profession didn't give me as much as I needed as an advocate, because there is clinical social work, there is policy social work, etc. And there is community organizing in some school of social work, like Silverman but not in all. So there were a lot of holes that I needed to fill in order to become a more effective social worker, which is to learn the law. And like, for example, in my next class, I'm going to be teaching my students a master's degree at Columbia Social Work. I'm going to be teaching them how to win Medicaid, Medicare, welfare case in administrative court for your client. Well, that's something that I think is a must in the School of Social Work. You shouldn't be separating. Things, if anything, are merging more and more and more. And I think that social work and social workers need to learn more about the law, and the law needs to become more humanized by working more with social workers. I think that we're entering into an era of merging things, not isolating things. So that's why I became a lawyer. It was to become a more effective advocate, an organizer, a social worker, because the law is very powerful when you know it, and it can be your biggest enemy when you don't know it. So that's why.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing. And it's amazing to see like the interdisciplinary aspects of campaigns, and it's so important. And I really admire that you felt like there was a hole and you went in and got another degree. So I think that's really amazing. I think we have time for one more quick question, and then we'll wrap up. So I wanted. Oh,
Let me. I have to pitch something, and it's not for pitching it. It's just that you ask a question. I have a book called 5 Sessions. You don't have to sell it. I mean, you don't have to buy it. This is a criticism of social work, of how therapy in social work, clinical social work, fails communities of color, because do not include the social and political context in which poor and people of color live. So it's called 5 Sessions. It's a class at Columbia University right now. We're teaching this novella that talks about how social work is failing, especially people of color. The question in one of the characters, it says, do you think that slaves in the South would have felt better about slavery if they had therapy 3 times a week? Think about that. So therapy is not going to help that. It's social action. It's fighting back. So, I mean, just to contribute to the question that you asked me before. So it was clicking.
And I encourage you all to buy the book and look it up. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the Latino Institute has further trainings and sessions on their website, free of charge. So everyone should check that out. You know, this was kind of quick, but just to get a taste of it. But there are longer sessions, and everyone should feel free to use that as a resource.
Yes.
Great. Well, I think we're just about at time. So Professor Estades, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all that attended. We encourage you to attend the future sessions of this boot camp. And that concludes session 1. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.